Welcome back to the Cult House Podcast. I'm your host, Roger Riddell, and my guest today is Bruce Lamont. He is the vocalist and saxophonist for the band Yakuza, and he's also in House, Bloodiest, Led Zeppelin 2, and about a half dozen other bands. How are you doing today, Bruce?
Great, Roger. How are you?
Pretty good. It's been a while since I've seen you. I think it was maybe like 2018 when I worked your merch table at that Yob show.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it's been a couple years. So yeah, nice to see you again. So hell yeah.
Yeah, how's things been going?
Going pretty good, man. Life seems to be kind of getting back to some kind of normalcy, I guess, at this point. But yeah, starting to get back to that, and grateful for that. So, things are good.
Yeah, it's been a weird couple years.
Yeah, especially the last 15 months. It's been real weird. But yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I'll follow that light for now.
Yeah, and I heard that you were in the process of working on a new Yakuza album.
Yep, we are. We've been working on this record for like 3 years, and we're finally hitting the studio in June, and really excited. 10 songs. Jerome Marshall's playing bass for us, or has for the last couple of years, and he's a great addition. He's the one we've been looking for a long time. So yeah, it's great. So it's been 10 years since we put a record out, so we're all very excited.
Yeah, I remember Bale was probably my favorite album that came out in, I think that was 2012.
Yep.
Yeah, the same year that I think there was that, and the Knocked album came out that year, and they were like kind of neck and neck for my favorites.
Oh, cool! Thanks, man. Yeah, that Bale just got reissued on LP format, and I just heard it for the first time last night, and I'm really, really happy with the way it turned out. This guy Colin Jordan in town is a kind of a mastering guru we've used for a long time, and he did a special LP master for that one, and man, he really knocked it out of the park. So I mean, you could really hear some night. I could hear all the instruments. Nice separation. It's real punchy. I couldn't be happier with the way it came out. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jerome joining the band, and I think like he had just joined right around the last time that I saw you. He's one of these people that I've never like really talked to a lot, but anytime that I've ever been around him, I'm like, yeah, that dude's got really fucking good vibes,
Yeah. We've known him for a really long time. I mean, he tells the story the first time he ever saw Yakuza, and he was 15 years old. And I remember that kid. He was cool, and I liked him then. And now he's all grown up and in the band, and I like him now too. So I don't just like him, I love him. He's awesome. So yeah, he's a great guy, killer musician. Brings it every fucking show, every rehearsal, So yeah, he fits right in. So we love him.
Yeah. He's kind of like you in a lot of ways, because he's like a staple of that Chicago bar scene up there too, where like you're like the guy that's always associated with Empty Bottle. He's kind of always associated with The Exit, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now Reggie's, he just got a job there. He just started bartending yesterday, I think. So he's now the new face at Reggie's, and people I've talked to over there were really excited to have him. So, yeah, he's just good. He's good vibes, good people to have around. So everybody wants a piece of him,
Yeah. I think one thing that I've never asked you about, but I've wondered about occasionally, is how you ended up naming the band Yakuza, because it seems like one of those decisions where like once you come up with it, you're like, well, I guess we can't tour Japan now,
Right. I didn't I personally did not come up with that name. That was Jim and the original guitar player Eric Plunka. They came up with it. Mostly Jim Staffel, who plays drums for Yakuza 20 years later. I came in a little later. He just a love for, you know, Eastern culture and especially criminal culture. The term Yakuza for us is not like you know, we are not mocking that terminology or the ideology behind what the Yakuza is in any way, shape, or form. It's more of a respect thing. He could probably explain the band name better than I could, but I always thought that's what it was just like a homage to Eastern culture and, like I said, Eastern kind of criminal culture. And that there's a different air about the Yakuza as compared to, like, you know, even calling your band Mafia or something. You know, it doesn't have the same kind of ring. It also doesn't have the same kind of connotations. You know, I mean, the Yakuza have been known for, you know, members of the Yakuza are missing fingers and are fully tattooed, and, you know, kind of like they roam in the shadows of, you know, modern culture and things like that, or, you know, modern society. So that all sounded pretty cool to me. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's call ourselves Yakuza. We have not toured Japan ever. We're not afraid to, though. We'll do it. You know, I mean, if the Yakuza come knocking on the door, I guess we can, you know, try to talk our way out of you know, having some fingers chopped off or whatever, you know, or maybe they'll find us to be good foot soldiers and we can, you know, party with them or something. I don't know.
You could be the Yakuza house band.
Yeah, whatever they want. I mean, the Yakuza gets what they want, so they can, you know. So.
And that band was also kind of your inroad back into the metal scene after you were a jazz musician for a while in the 90s, right?
Somewhat, yeah. I wouldn't call myself a jazz musician per se, but I was definitely exploring other styles of music through the 90s. I was definitely, like, grew up a metal kid, you know, but going to shows, you know, starting in like 88. And then in the early 90s, I started working at a record store out in the suburbs, and it was like being a kid in a candy store. You know, it's just like all of this, you know, there's like all of this can be yours, and it's not like, oh, you know, I think back in the early days of the metal scene, you know, it was like everything was just metal or nothing, man. And I didn't really, you know, I wasn't really down with that so much. You know, I was like, no, I want to check out some other stuff too. And when I started working at the record store, it was like all the other employees were like, yeah, man, it's like, you know, this is all yours. Go for it. Whatever you want to listen to or try out or whatever, it's yours for the taking. And yeah, so I completely did like a fucking 180 from metal to like listening to, you know, bands like the Smithereens back in the late 80s, to, you know, The Cure, and, you know, and that was like, you know, it was kind of like that kind of rocked my world a little bit. You know, I was like, oh, there's so much more than just metal. I love metal, of course, you know, always will. But there's so much out there, and especially it's like basically now more than ever, it's like all recorded music is like at your fingertips. So it's like, just go for it, you know. It's like you can listen to anything. I jump around from listening to Wasp, Double Live Assassins, to listening to Doc Watson, to listening to, you know, Butthole Surfers, and then get into like, you know, Dick Dale, and then switch over to like both John and Alice Coltrane. You know, like who cares? Like whatever. It's just like, you know, everything's out there. You know, and there's so much of it. There's so much awesome shit, you know, in music in general. Why limit yourself to just like one genre or one style? You know, I don't know. I'm always trying to keep my ears open to anything, you know, anything and everything. But I do have a love for metal for sure, of course. You know, there's nothing like it, especially the classic shit. You know, I mean, I grew up with a lot of that in the 80s and stuff, and I've definitely been going back to that a lot last year or two, you know, and talking to some of my friends from that time growing up and stuff. And, you know, I was just joking with a friend. I like was listening to I can't remember the name of the record, but it's a live Sacred Heart, live from Philly 1986 Dio record. And I wrote to my two friends that I talk about music with a lot that are like my age, And I'm like, why do I always go back to 1986? My one friend's like, because it was fucking awesome. It's like, yeah, you're right. Master of Puppets came out that year. I was 14 years old. There's just so much shit that was so amazing. I think you just, when you're young, it's you find. So I hope that still happens for young people. But like for me, it was like when you were young. I think Lemmy even said that about like his love for Little Richard, and he remembered, there not being rock and roll, and then there was rock and roll, and he heard it when he was a kid, and it like changed his life, and he always went back to his influences were always like that stuff. I heard that in that documentary. He's talking about it in interviews as well too, and that really resonated like pretty hardcore with me. I was like, hell yeah, man! Like the stuff I heard as a kid, I still love, And sometimes I hear people like, man, that music is stupid. I go, yeah, but that's my stupid, man. I heard that shit when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. I mean, I still like people like argue with me about Def Leppard, I was like, yo, man, High and Dry is one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. They're like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, I gotta be kidding you. Have you listened to that fucking record? That record, it fucking rules from beginning to end. It's Mutt Lange. He did a bunch of AC/DC shit, man. That record fucking slays. But I also heard it when I was 12 years old, and it blew my mind then. And I'm almost 50, man. I love that shit. It's so good. But I don't like Hysteria, or Adrenalize. It's not my shit. That's like, whatever. But, like I said, stuff when you hear when you're young and you just hang on to it, whatever. We all got the stories. I've got friends that are a little younger than me, and they're like, oh man, I love Weezer. And I'm like, oh God, I fucking hate Weezer. But I'm like, oh, wait, when did you hear it? They're like, when I was 10. I'm like, well, that's why you love Weezer. All right, now I get it. Okay, that's cool. And I totally back off. It's like I had this argument with, again, sorry I'm rambling here. I was talking to this professor I had in college, and we were talking about Kiss, the first time they reunited. And I was talking about going to the show, and I was really excited. And she's like, oh, you're going to see the Melvins, right? I'm like, well, I'm happy the Melvins are opening, but I'm going to see Kiss too. And she's like, you like Kiss? I'm like, yeah, and she's like, oh, wait, when did you get into Kiss? I was like, when I was 7. She's like, that's why you love Kiss. I was like, what are you talking about? But she's right.
Yeah. No, I argue with people all the time about Kiss too, that they, first of all, I think Dynasty is like a super underrated album, which is a controversial opinion for Kiss fans.
Thank
But
you. I literally just had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we talked about Dynasty, and we talked about The Elder, and how we both how we feel about those albums, and we don't hate either one of them. So like, and again, that's controversial. They're like, what? Dynasty's bullshit. Fucking Peter Criss even play on that record. Ace Frehley barely played on that record. I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, there's still some good songs on there. I mean, Charisma is fucking awesome. So it's like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm with you. And The Elder too. Like I was taught to hate that record, and I don't hate it. I'm like, it's not that bad. I've heard way worse than that. I mean, for sure. And from Kiss too. I mean, you want to go hot in the shade. Ooh, now that's a fucking garbage fucking Kiss record. I mean, but yeah, not The Elder. I don't know. So I mean, again, we can go back. I'm sure we can go back and forth all day long on that kind of shit. So.
Oh yeah, because I mean, even some of their Unmasked stuff is way underrated. Like the Revenge album, it's fucking fantastic, but no one ever talks about that one.
Right. Or I liked Animalized when I was a teenager, and Asylum too. Like I don't like every song on either of those records, but I do not hate either one of those records at all. Of course not. Lick It Up for sure. I love that. When that shit came out, I was 11, and I was like, holy fuck! Like this is what a good move too. Like them to take the makeup off, and they did a big thing on MTV. I've ever watched it on YouTube, like the JJ Jackson of like the reintroduction of Kiss with no makeup on, and they were like Gene Simmons. I think they like superimposed like the makeup faces over Gene, and then that went away. It was Gene, and they're like Paul, and they had Star Child, and there was Paul with no makeup, and then Vinnie Vincent was the Ankh, and they had him, and and all this shit. And I love that stuff. Good. I mean, man, Kiss. I mean, time and time again, that band just figured out ways to just keep themselves fucking relevant and on top and moving along, and you gotta hand it to them for that. I mean, as much as sometimes Gene Simmons can say some fucked up shit and say some really dumb shit, still gotta fucking tip the hat.
Yeah, I mean,
for
I think
them.
a lot of that is just really smart of him too, to know that if he says something that's really dumb or attention grabbing or whatever, there's all these websites that are just going to write about it.
Yep, you are absolutely right, totally, and it's gonna get people fucking squawking, like us right now. It's like we're still talking about Kiss, in one way or another. So fucking good for them, man. That's hell yeah. So
I mean, it's kind of
can't take
interesting too that for as much as people rag on them for having a piece of merchandise for everything, that's pretty much the model that like every super successful band has to do now in order to make any sort of money off of what they're doing, because you're not making money off of album sales.
Absolutely. That's funny you say that, because just recently I was thinking about, we do merch for Led Zeppelin too, and obviously that's a whole other interesting kind of thing to wrap your head around, is like selling merch of a band that's not your band, and but so I mean I want to think of it like kind of outside of the box a little bit. So I study some of the bigger bands as merch situations, uh, and Kiss is definitely one of them. I subscribe to Kiss's online merch store, along with Ozzy's and Scorpions and a couple other big ones. But I just kind of look, and Metallica for that matter too. And they all these days have a very similar kind of style. I mean, a bunch of those companies it's the same company. Like Ozzy, Slayer, and Scorpions, I think are all based, some company out of San Francisco. But you look at like the way, I mean, the amount of throwback shit that they've all embraced. Like every band is like, they've got so much. Kiss is like, holy crap. You like Dynasty? There's a Dynasty shirt out there somewhere. There's a distressed look Dynasty 79 tour shirt. There's a Dynasty, just the album cover. There's an Elder shirt. There's fucking everything. There's something for every fan. No matter, Hot in the Shade. I'm talking shit on. I was talking shit on Crazy. I say Hot in the Shade. I thought it was Crazy Nights. Whatever. It's the same crap. But there's shirts for that, and Ozzy's got everything. He's got Speaking of the Devil shirts. You can't even get Speaking of the Devil on any kind of streaming service. Like I rebought the double LP recently because I just liked that record, and it's just fascinating. And Metallica too, tons of old shit. I mean, obviously they never stopped selling the Metal Up Your Ass t-shirts or fucking Ride the Lightning t-shirts or whatever. But yeah, it's really fascinating. So I look at that and be like, all right, now what can we do in some way, to make it Zeppelin-esque, but still kind of unique to us. So actually my future wife, who's in the next room, Anna Michael, she designed some of our merch for us. And she did some really cool stuff where she kind of got Art Deco-y with some of the characters, like a Jimmy Page, she took this Jimmy Page and she elongated him, like and kind of almost took away his facial features, but then, but it's totally iconic. It's like him drawing the bow back, and she just kind of came up with this idea along with the Zep 2 logo, which Stavros actually came up with for us. And it's a take on Zeppelin's logo, but just enough so we don't get in trouble. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that. And it's that stuff, so it kind of seems to work for us. We're a fucking cover band that sells merch, and we do sell merch. Like people buy this shit. So it's like, not, we're doing sleep numbers, but we do pretty good for, cover band merch.
Yeah, I remember one of those nights that you played Silver Spring out here, you all ran out of merch, right?
Yeah. No, it's happened. I mean, there's some bigger market shows like that, or we're getting down to Houston and Dallas. Those are two of our biggest cities in the United States, next to Chicago. And funny thing is, we just announced 2 House of Blues shows in September. They just went on sale a week ago. The promoter texted me today, was like, "You're not going to fucking believe this. We have 400 pre-sales for Houston and 300 for Dallas first week." I was like, sellouts, done. Awesome. That's amazing. I mean, people are chomping at the bit, obviously, right now to go to shows. So like, but that's great for us. We're like, it just kind of reaffirms that idea that shit's kind of happening. So, yeah, we've run out, like down there, like Houston, we've sold thousands of dollars in merch, and then for us, that's madness. That's completely insane. But it happens. I mean, ask Eddie Gobo. He's the one that makes the merch. So
Yeah, no, it's,
yeah.
It's interesting too that like before the pandemic, I would think about every now and then how crazy it was that you all are a cover band, but you get booked in like Tel Aviv and like Live Nation promotes you in emails.
Yeah. Yeah. I've made jokes about my my regular band, like a solo act. I play people's living rooms, and my cover band plays arenas. So, and that's not even a joke. We played the Bell Center in Montreal one time, and that's all it took. So me and the drummer at the time were like, "Well, never thought this was going to happen. Weird, but it happened. So fuck it, like whatever. It's a weird time in music, but we'll take it. So fuck, I'm thrilled. No problem with it at all. So yeah, it took me years to actually want to embrace the Zeppelin thing. I was kind of like a little like, man, you gotta be kidding me. But not anymore. Hell no, I love it. If it can fund the rest of my projects in some way, shape, or form, then fuck yeah, let's do it. So
And it's wild that you all have all the mannerisms and everything down too. Like just the amount of attention to detail that you all have put into that is like kind of mind-boggling to me, because you're basically like spending an hour and a half, however long the set is,
2 hours.
embodying like
Yeah.
just embodying like totally different people, like down to
Yeah.
just like the little mannerisms, like the way that Robert Plant approaches the mic stand.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a musical acting gig, And I mean, thank you for the kind words. I always feel like that's a work in progress. Like I always feel like we should be even more detail oriented. There's just little things, I'm always looking around the stage like, how can we improve this even more? So like, I want people to like come in and just be like complete. I mean, if they're floored already, cool. I want it to be even better, down to like, we were talking about alcohol on stage. Okay, like people drink, we all drink, and dudes were drinking like White Claws and stuff. And I was like, hey, I don't think they would drink White Claws in the 70s. Not saying you shouldn't have a White Claw. It's totally fine. And also the branding thing too was like, they're not giving us any money. Fuck them. I mean, if they do, we'll drink White Claws till the cows come home, but until then, fuck that. So now we do what they did. They put everything in cups. They had cups for everything, including the water back in the day. Then even more so, in my head, they were all Coca-Cola branded wax cups from the 70s. I'm trying to find those. So we actually have, I mean, just that's like attention to details, like down to the fucking water glass. They're all these Coca-Cola cups that they used in the 70s, the exact same ones, like trying to find those. And what sucks is like Coke doesn't make those anymore, I guess. And you can only find those in like secondhand stores, and they're like novelty items, and they're expensive. So like we can't do it. I'm like, fuck that shit. We're not spending like hundreds of dollars on these stupid cups. At least not right now, But yeah, it's like that. There's a few other things, I don't want to ruin the show for anybody. But yeah, we are constantly trying to figure out ways to just, every little thing is there, just so everybody has that. People because that's the experience that people want. They want to. We've heard it from people. They're like, they had seen Zeppelin, or they hadn't, but they wanted to experience what they see in Song Remains the Same, or even O2 or whatever. They want that. They don't want us for sure. They want something completely different, and that's cool. That's what we should give them. Like it's a business. It's a Led Zeppelin show. And whatever it takes, man. I'll fucking go to the wall for that and make sure it's always top notch, or fuck it, let's not do it.
Yeah. So. If White Claw did give you all enough money, would Black Dog become White Claw?
Maybe. Sure. Why not, right? Yeah, absolutely. What? Yeah, White Claw become Black Dog become White Claw. Yes, totally, for sure. Wouldn't even think twice about it. What else you got? I mean, what else can we sell on stage? I don't know. I mean, all of a sudden in between songs, like Over the Hills and Far Away is brought to you by Apple Computers. Why don't you buy yourself an Apple today? Whatever. I would fucking just turn the whole thing into one big commercial. Why not? Like, as long as they're fucking tossing money on the fucking, on us, no problem. We'll fucking sell out like crazy. So.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the point where you would actually hear from Led Zeppelin itself.
I'd be like, oh, you guys just jealous? You didn't think of this before, you know? Why did you guys do this? No, because they have more money than you know, than anybody in the whole world, in the whole rock world. I mean, they actually own their own music, you know, which is such a rarity. If they're the only band, I think Metallica got their stuff back, you know, recently, in the last couple. That's why it's all black-ended and reissued and stuff. But yeah, no one owns their own shit. Zeppelin has for forever, you know.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you I actually met Robert Plant finally after a bunch? Yeah. He came into Thalia Hall while I was bartending. I had just gotten home from through like a weekend of Zepp shows, got dropped off at the hall, walked inside, and a bunch of the production staff were like all like hemming and hawing. They're like giggling, they're looking at me, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And finally the head of production walks over and goes, we got a special guest tonight. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care. And he's like, you get one guess who it is. I'm like, well, since I don't give a fuck who the hell's coming in this place, it's got to be Robert Plant. And he's like, ding, 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 ding. I'm like, whatever. And so he's like, he just gives me the details. Like, he's coming in with a whole entourage of people. They don't want any like fancy treatment. They don't want to be put in VIP. They're going to come in this side door. That's all they ask. And they're going to hang out just in the back here. I'm like, okay, whatever. So the show's going on. Sure enough, you know, Plant and this whole entourage, his band, some jam productions people, they all come in this one door, and like, okay, there's Robert Plant. And all the other bartenders are like freaking out. They're like, oh my God, yeah, they get a damn. I'm like, I don't know, whatever. And the funny thing is that, so he's in there and he's kind of mulling about for a minute, and then he makes his way to the bar, and without even anything, no one did anything, but he just made a beeline right to me and walked right to me, and he's going, no, I'm going to buy the first drink, to like who he's with, and he turns around and he goes, hello, and I go, what's up? And he's like, you know, and I'll never forget the order for the rest of my life. He's like, can I have a Modelo? And I'm like, yep. He's like, can I have a JD and Coke? And I thought in my head, like, what an old man thing to say, a JD and Coke. No one orders Jack Daniels JD. That's like super, like, I mean, my fucking, like, I don't know, my grandmother would order Jack Daniels as JD. I was like, oh, JD and Coke. Okay, cool, man. And so, and he's like, you take plastic? I'm like, yeah. And he hands me his card. I go, you know, this is like one of the most awkward moments ever. But hey, my name is Bruce Lamont. And I put my hand out and I go, I play in a bunch of bands, but one of the bands I play in is called Led Zeppelin 2. And he stops for a minute and he goes, I've been known to cover a couple of your songs. And I go, yeah, I heard that. And I walked away, and he started laughing, and he was talking to this guy from Jam who I kind of seen around. He's he's either a security guard or he's like a bouncer guy or like maybe like a bodyguard situation. He's a bigger dude, you know. I've seen him around at Riviera and stuff. And so I go run the card, I come back, and he goes, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, do you have any music recorded? And I go, do I have any music recorded? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, I just put a solo record out like 3 months ago. You know, you want to check it out? He goes, no. I meant of the Zepp stuff. And I stopped for a minute and I looked and I go, why the fuck would I want to record your music? That's ridiculous. No, there's no recording. We don't have any recordings. And he goes like, do you have any YouTubes? And in my head, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. This is how the lawsuit starts. And so I start going, well, you know, we're trying to stay true to the legacy of Led Zeppelin. And I'm going, he goes, oh, so you play for free? And I go, hey buddy, I got 7 bands to feed, okay? I don't play for free. I go, yeah. And he's like, he starts laughing. He's like, I'm just kidding. I don't care. I just want to check the band out. And I go, oh, yeah, tons of YouTubes. Just type in Led Zeppelin 2, you'll find it. He goes, awesome. And he signs this thing and he gives me a little tip. And he's like, Bruce, nice to meet you. I'm like, Robert, pleasure. And I shook his hand. And that was that. So it was cool. All the while, the whole production staff is like hovering on the end of the bar, watching the whole thing go down, and not one person took a picture. I'm like, you fucking jackbags. You kidding me? So I didn't ask him for a photo. I was like, I couldn't do it. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Fuck that shit. It was like, you know, we had a nice exchange. And then he came over to me later and he's like, hey, Bruce. I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, where's the little boy's room? I'm like, oh yeah, around the corner and this way. He's like, oh, thank you. And he walked off and took a leak and came back. But he did walk back up and say, "Hey, Bruce." And then he went back and told like his bandmates and everyone he was with, like what had happened, and they were all like laughing and like not laughing, but they're like, "Holy shit," you know, like he's like, of all the things, like the bartender's a fucking in a Led Zeppelin cover band, you know. And the guy he was with worked for Jam, and he walked over, and we had met before, and he's like, "What's up?" I go, "Hey, good to see you. What's up?" He's like, "You told him?" I go, "Yeah, I told him." He goes, "Awesome. I was gonna tell him if you didn't." I was like, "That's a little weird if I didn't say anything." You know, I mean, that's probably the only time I would meet the guy in my life. So, but it was funny. And then while they were leaving, one of the guys in his band goes, "Good luck with the band." And I go, "Oh, thank you. You as well. Have a good show." They were playing like the Riviera like 2 nights later or whatever. And I was like, "Okay, have a good night." You know, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, when I met Robert Plant, so and he gave the pass. He said he didn't care. So I was like, "All right." And now it's on record with you. I was like, "Everyone, you heard that, right? You heard that, right? You can't sue me. He just said it was cool." Just kidding. I never thought he would anyways. I never thought they would anyway. So, you know, I figured they got other things to worry about than some little old me doing covers of their songs, trying to keep the legacy, you know, fresh and alive for the kids, you know. Kidding.
I mean, that's just cool hearing that he was just pretty chill in general.
Oh, he was rad. Totally down to earth, no bullshit. And it was kind of funny because like he's talking to me and he's got his little hair in a bun, gray, and he's all wearing all black, and I got my hair in a bun, and I like my hair, you know, I'm in all black. It's like I'm looking at myself like 30 years from now. I'm like, oh, we're like the same guy, just a couple years difference in age. That's about it. So yeah, he was cool. So got nothing bad to say at all. I've had other friends like play shows with him and stuff, and say he's super rad, like totally chill, you know, just down to earth, you know. Yeah.
You mentioned Thalia Hall. How is that doing? And also how is Empty Bottle doing just after this whole past 15 months?
Thalia has been closed the entire time. They are about to start having like some distant shows in early July, and then I guess they had gotten the green light from the city. They're allowed to do full-on capacity shows by the time Lollapalooza hits here, so early, like late July, early August. And then Empty Bottle, I've been working there for the past number of months. We tried to do an opening in October, just a couple staff members, and they had opened a pizza place next door in the Bite space during the pandemic, and which got really popular. And so we were serving food and just beers and just, you know, kind of playing music over the PA and stuff, and it was cool. At the time, people were still pretty reluctant to come out and hang. And then after the vaccination started getting out there, we opened back up, and it was a whole different story. People were coming in, and now it's like I've done 2 events, and they were completely chaos. I think it was like 2 DJ events, and people are just chomping at the bit to hang. And yeah, I mean, we had to have like we had to cut off like the amount of people coming in because our capacity was only like, you know, we had kind of called it, and it was like complete chaos. You know, our capacity is like 50, and there's like 80 people in the place, and I was like by myself, you know, as the bartender, like, holy shit, whoa. So yeah, and that was just our capacity. That's actually not like the legal number. The legal number's more, but yeah. So and the shows are starting back up like now, pretty much. Not full shows, but by August they'll be full in capacity and stuff. So yeah. How's it going in Baltimore? That area.
Oh, in DC area, yeah, it's
yeah, DC area. Sorry,
I haven't been into DC proper in like a while, but just in the area that I live down in Arlington, things are starting to open back up a little bit. I'm seeing a lot more people out and about now, so that's all pretty good. And I think like this area's got a pretty high like vaccination rate, so yeah, I think everything's just kind of like starting to get back to as close to normal as it can be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, same here. So
yeah,
you know, glad for, you know, happy for that. So
yeah, I'm glad to hear that the bottle is doing well and made it through all of this, because probably one of my favorite small venues that I've ever been to. Like my favorite memory from that place is 10 years ago on I think it was Black Friday when Cyanide played there. And I was like right up in front of the stage the whole time. And I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I was doing this, but I was like pounding my fist into the stage during their set. And for like 2 days afterwards, I couldn't like fully open or close it.
Oh shit. That's it's a good show.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And Cyanide too. I could see that. I could see what you were motivated by for sure, because they're fucking awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're one of those like storied, like old school Chicago death metal bands where I think I was talking to Mike about this on the last episode. That city is super underrated, and as far as like the amount of influence that it had early on both death metal and thrash metal, but it never really gets a lot of attention for that because that all goes to like Florida and the Bay Area.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, Chicago's got it going on so many levels, and it has for a long time. I mean, there's so much. I mean, those guys. I mean, the impact that Trouble has had on things up to this point, or at least the offshoot bands to the Skull and all. I mean, just those guys in general. I mean, huge, and then just other stuff too. I mean, like I'm thinking of
there was like Trouble,
E-Trope,
like
Slaughter Extruded and stuff like that, like
Master and like Paul Speckman's other like six bands.
Yeah, right, exactly. Tons of stuff. So yeah, it's a metal city that never got its just due. You did a nice piece in the Onion back a while ago. Was it 10 years ago now?
Yeah,
like 11, 9. Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, that was a cool piece. I was actually, like I said, I was telling my future wife that all about it. So and I was like, yeah, it was a really, really awesome piece that they had me a part of it. So
yeah, no, that was it was a lot of like crazy legwork, and pretty much everyone that I still talk to from Chicago to this day is all people that I met through doing that. It's like I met, well, the first person I ever met in the Chicago metal scene was Blake, and that was in like February of that year when Noct was opening for Cradle of Filth at the House of Rules. Right. And that was like a whole funny thing in retrospect, because I was in grad school at that time, and I think I had an exam or something the next day, but like I met Blake at the merch table there, and he was like, yo, you should come to this after party at the Cobra Lounge. And immediately I'm just like thinking, fuck, I can't do that because I gotta go take this test tomorrow because I'm in like all this fucking student loan debt at this point. So then circle back like 6 months later, and I think through Sanford was like my inroad to like pretty much everyone that I know in that whole like music community up there.
Yeah Go to the engineer who who engineered all their records. So yeah, I mean I know that you talked like Necromancer and stuff like that. John, who's a great dude. I got to see him through the pandemic bullshit. He does there's a building that was condemned on the block of my house, and someone wanted to sell it, and I was like looking at it, and I was calling Sanford. He's like, oh dude, call John really quick, he'll come take a look at it. And so John's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes, and he came over and was like, ooh, what do you want to do with this thing? I'm like, I don't know, it's a lot of work. What do you think? He's like, yeah, a lot of work. But then we were just like shooting the shit, yeah, good dude, just total fucking great guy, fucking metalhead motherfucker, but also super skilled, doing a bunch of stuff, jack of all trades kind of guy. So, one of many awesome people in this city, but he's a good one. So,
yeah, I haven't seen him since maybe like 2014, because I caught up with him at some bar that Andrew from Atlas Moth was working at the time.
Okay.
And then I haven't, like the last few times that I've been up there, I haven't had a chance to catch up with him. But he and Mike from Cyanide, out of all of like the old school death metal dudes up there that I met, I think I've probably like tried to stay in touch with both of those dudes the most, because Mike I can just like message every now and then about Godzilla shit, because
Yeah.
he and I both have that in common. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
yeah,
We all got stuff we love, even outside of metal, or in conjunction with metal. Godzilla kind of seems like that works pretty well with metal stuff. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, there was one thing that you mentioned earlier where it's like that whole metal or nothing mentality. And something that I think about every now and then is to like what extent that has like in the long run kind of hurt metal as a genre. Because pretty much everything that kind of steps outside the box gets shit on by like kind of the core metalhead audience, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way that genre went for a while. I don't feel like that's the case at all anymore. I mean, even when Yakuza started, we definitely were not embraced by the metal community at large. But it's come around for sure. I think it's different now than it was back 20 years ago. But then, there's a lot of old school folks that were totally, I mean, Macabre dudes fucking embraced us from day one, so it's like, those guys have been around for fucking forever, and they took us under their dark black wing, and gave us an opportunity to play in front of some people, and over the years, early on they took us out, or had us play with them, and then I did some shows with them solo in Europe and stuff, and I was getting fucking booed every night. People were just fucking heckling the shit out of me, like just hated what I was doing. This is my solo stuff, and those guys still stood by me the whole time. They were like fucking into it. And then towards the very end of the tour, like Lance was like, "Yo, can I join your solo set?" I'm like, "Yeah." That was a whole different story. Crowd changed their tune real fast when he and I would do stuff together. They're like, "Oh, and now it's fucking, it's corporate death, with this fucking joker, and yeah, it was cool. But yeah, good dudes, and they're old school, and Necromancer for that matter too. I mean, he used to come out to see us early on and stuff like that, and he seemed like he was into it. He came more than once, so I figured he must not totally hate it. And I knew some of those usurper guys early on too. Like, I mean, Dan Lawson and I go back like really far. So and like Jimmy from Jungle Rot and shit like that. We're all friends, and all that. Those guys are all old school, and we're still buds to this day. And they didn't look at us like we were fucking from Mars, kind of. They're like, this is weird, but it's heavy, so okay, Other people were like, fuck this shit. These guys are horrible. I'm like, fuck you, Kenny G, motherfucker. Heard that all the time. It's like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
And it's that whole thing has always just kind of been weird to me too, because it's like bands going all the way back to early days of metal have experimented with different things like that. I mean, you had like Metallica with the flamenco guitars at the beginning of Battery.
Right.
You had all the black metal bands that fucked around with the symphonic stuff, starting with like Emperor and on Nightside Eclipse.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's history behind that, and even more. I mean, even go back to more proto metal stuff. I mean, fucking Hawkwind. Come on. I mean, Lemmy was in that band, and there was all kinds of fucking experimentation going on with that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I remember hearing like Frederick from Meshuggah's first solo record even 20 years ago, and there's soprano saxophone on that on Special Defects, and not that was like a thing. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. But I mean, I heard it. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it was is it Isham from Emperor? They have a sax player in that band, doesn't he? In his solo band, or I think so.
I think so.
Or he did at one point, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm just saying, not to be about the saxophone being, the instrument of experimentation. That's not at all. But I mean, just trying new shit, and I don't even. The first time I heard like, was it Blood Off Snord? I always thought that was kind of like an experimental. I mean, their heaviest. Or I don't know. I should call they. Is it one guy? Well, is Blood Off Snord one dude, one French guy, or a couple French people? We don't know.
Yeah.
Like a mystery. Still a mystery. Yeah, I don't even care about the lore. I just care about the music. So it's like, yeah, I thought of that as being kind of experimental, and it's not, your run of the mill kind of metal stuff. I don't know. I think there's a lot out there that's like that. And if you don't define it as metal, that's your problem, you know.
Yeah, and I mean
it's
Chicago kind of
original.
lended itself to being experimental anyways, especially once you got up into the 90s and you had all the wax track stuff.
Yep.
And you know, you've got like they weren't part of the wax tracks thing, but they're tangentially kind of associated with it. Nine Inch Nails, you got Trent Reznor playing saxophone now, you know.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking about that too, actually, because I just talked to a friend of mine who's a sax player named Mars Williams, long time improviser guy, jazz improviser guy, but also played in a bunch of rock bands. He's in the Psychedelic Furs. He was in a band called the Waitresses back in the day, but he played sax on Mine Is a Terrible Thing to Taste Ministry. And I thought that saxophone sound was fucking killer. It's like super like, you know, delayed out and kind of trippy, and it was cool. This is 1989, you know, and one of Ministry's heaviest records to date at the point, you know, and you know, there you go. So there's and that's Chicago stuff, you know.
Yeah. So speaking of saxophone and heavy music, I think I saw on Instagram recently that you're also doing something right now related to Brain Tentacles.
Yeah, we actually got together last weekend for the first time in 20 months. They came to Chicago. Dave does some partnership stuff with Dark Matter Coffee, not music related or just related to him. And they asked us to do a segment for kind of like their version of Tiny Desk that they're coming out soon. And yeah, so we got together. Aaron came into town and we did 5 songs for them, and it was pretty fun, which is great because it kind of got us motivated to get working on some new stuff. We have a new song that we played, a newer song in the batch of stuff we played. So, but yeah, we're getting ready to start working on some new stuff too. So hopefully by next year we'll be in the studio working on some stuff, you know.
You know, that first Brain Tentacles album is something that I can always kind of put on in the background because it's not very like lyric heavy, but it's just really good kind of music to have on while I'm doing other stuff, you know.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. There's there's not really a vocal, like a really prominent vocal thing happening. I mean, here and there, you know, we just kind of like pepper it in. It's mostly just the 3 of us, you know, bass, sax, and drums. But you know, occasionally, or unless we get like a guest like Eugene Robinson, then there's a lot of vocals going on. At least on Gassed, that one song. But yeah, looking forward to doing some stuff with them.
And so a few years ago, when I ran into you at the GWAR-B-Q, you stood in with Dillinger Escape Plan when their vocalist couldn't make it. How much like preparation time did you have for that, and how did you kind of go about coming up with how you were going to fill in for the vocal part just using your saxophone?
I had no preparation time. They walked up to me after the Brain Tentacles set, which was at 10:30 in the morning. So this is 11 a.m. and Dillinger hit at 1 p.m. So Liam and Ben came to watch us play. And I to bring it back a little bit, I was hanging out with Liam the night before. He had come to Richmond to hang with me and Dave. So we like kind of hung out at Dave's house, and he stayed overnight, and so did I, and had a few beers, and we were already hanging out. In fact, he and I drove in together. We drove into GWAR-B-Q in the morning, Liam and I did. And so Brain Tentacles did our set, and I was literally packing my stuff up, and Liam, like him and Ben, walked up, and he's like, "Yo, dude, first thing, that was awesome." I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And he's like, "Cool." He goes, "And secondly, we have a favor to ask." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "We want you to front Dillinger today." And I went, "Oh, why? What's going on?" And he's like, "Yeah, Greg missed his flight out of LA, so he's not going to make it." And I went, "Oh, bummer." I go, "Do you want me to sing?" And then he's like, "No, we want to do it on sax." I go, "Cool." I go, "You guys playing 43% Burnt?" They're like, "Nope." I go, "You playing anything off Miss Machine?" And they go, "Nope." I go, Well, I don't have to tell you because I stopped listening to you guys in 2004, so I don't know any of your fucking music at all. And they laughed. They're like, perfect, amazing, do it. And I go, can I at least see a set list? And they're like, sure. They showed me a set list and I listened to songs and I'm like, I'm not doing what Greg does on the sax. And they were like, just improvise, just fucking, make it as that wasn't really, actually I should say that. They didn't really give me much direction. They just said, just fucking go nuts. And I went, okay, go nuts. All right, see how this goes. So I listened to a couple of songs and I was like, okay, let's do this. And we just went for it. And, they were like, we'll see. Oh, Ben, the only thing Ben says, he goes, let's do a couple of songs and see how it goes. If it's a real train wreck, we'll fucking, you can take off and we'll play instrumental. And I said, cool, whatever. I don't give a shit. We did a couple songs and it was okay. It was weird, for me too. Like I didn't really know the twists and turns. And I was like, I like to be a little more prepared, but I can fly by the seat of my pants if I have to. So yeah, we did like 2 songs and I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit this next one out, So I walked off stage and they did another song and they did this one tune instrumentally, if you remember or not. And then I like looked up and Ben and Liam both were like, come on, like get back out here, like kind of a thing. Like I was like, oh, well, I guess I passed the test or what. I don't know. I didn't know what they were thinking, but yeah. And I played the rest of the show. I was like, fuck it. Like whatever happens, happens. And yeah, it was fun. It was just, it was a hoot for a one-time shot. And, it was hilarious. And I know like Ben was playing with the crowd. He's like, what's the problem? Like, oh, you don't like our new singer, or something like that or whatever. And they're like, people are just like, they like to confuse people and shit. It was fun. But we're not like insanely like I've known those guys for like a long time. I always see them like once a year or maybe every couple of years or something. I've been talking to Ben since the early 2000s. And yeah, it was cool. It was fun to do it. It was their last year as a band, and yeah, it was a little fun thing to throw in there. So it was cool.
Yeah, and they got to pull that one kid on stage at the end of their set too, and he got to fill in on vocals.
Right, exactly. So everybody got what they wanted. So it was fun.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been holding you up for about an hour now. So yeah.
quite all right. Anytime, my man. So yeah, it was a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm sure I'll be seeing you sometime soon too, because I think I'm more than likely moving back up there in the fall. So
cool. All right.
Seeing you around.
Hit me up, man, for sure. So, see some shows. I'll be around, Fuck yeah, dude. Great to see you as always. So